Sacco and Feliz, New York and New Jersey's premier attorneys at law. Their team brings decades of experience across a wide range of practice areas. Whatever life brings, they're your legal team. From everyday matters to complex cases, they've got you covered with the experience you need and the results you want. Because when life gets complicated, they make it simple. SaccoFeliz.com. SACCOFILLAS.com. 2 C's, 2 L's.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And you and I are in touch live with Sydney, Australia, and the legendary Ross Coulthart. Ross, thank you for being on the other side of midnight, a legend at News Nation.
Evening, Walter. A delight to be here, my friend. I'm actually standing in beautiful, brilliant sunshine on the south coast of New South Wales, about 2 hours south of Sydney. And it's one of those gorgeous autumnal days in Australia where the sun's still warm. So we are thinking of you and your lovely Midnight Misfits audience over there and enjoying the warmth while we still had it. Boy, there's some interesting things happening, Walter, on the UFO front. It is beginning to look like it's Christmas for the UFO community, who, as you know, sir, for so many years, so many decades, have held that the United States is concealing evidence of knowledge of extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence engagement with this planet. The president, as you know, back I think around about the 15th of February, Donald Trump promised on social media that he was going to move to declassify UAP files. And there's been a lot of speculation, what does this mean? What's happening? Is this for real? There was a comment that the president made at Turning Point, a religious meeting a couple of weeks ago, where he indicated that they are moving ahead with this decision, that they are going to soon, very soon, be releasing hitherto concealed UFO, UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena information. And hot off the press, my friend, I can tell you that a good friend of mine, Chris Sharp, who writes for the Liberation Times, a very reputable online magazine that I recommend to everybody, Chris has sources who are telling him that among the revelations the President, the White House, and indeed Marco Rubio, as acting National Security Advisor, may reveal, there is serious consideration being given now by the Trump administration to admitting that the United States has indeed retrieved non-human technology, spacecraft. I'll say it again, alien spacecraft. This is actively being mooted as a serious probability now by people who have sources within the administration. It's beginning to look like it's going to happen. I'm still skeptical. It'll take a lot to convince me that this is for real, because Donald Trump promised a lot on the Epstein files and failed to deliver. There's still millions of pages withheld. JFK was a bit of a fizzer as well, even though we know there was a conspiracy to murder the president by people who were working in the CIA and the Cuban emigres at the time. That's been covered up and concealed as being a single lone assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald. But in this case, there are persistent sources that are telling me the administration's serious, that Donald Trump is determined to find, let's be honest about it, a distraction from what's going on in the Middle East and everything else that's upsetting his poll numbers. And what better way than to be the transparency president, the president who provides what will be, I think, the definitive proof of, if you like, the dark state, the deep state, the fact that there has been this secret that has been concealed for so many decades. So things are hotting up, and there's speculation it might even be as early as tomorrow that the White House starts revealing information. I truly have no idea when this is going to happen. I do know it is going to happen. There is certainly some kind of revelation going to be made. And it may very well be, sir, that the biggest secret in human history, the concealment of the US and other countries' knowledge of extraterrestrial life, may finally be revealed to the world. And just leave you with this one thought. One explanation that's been given as to why this has taken so long is that the US apparently has been wrestling with whether they should coordinate with other countries in the world that are allegedly aware of this reality, including Russia, China, Israel, France, and the United Kingdom. And I'm told that those consultations are actually taking place at the moment. So we may very well soon, sir, be seeing what I think could be the biggest revelation in human history. We are not alone.
I wonder what the profit motive has been, or the leverage motive has been, to not release the information. I've been thinking about why is this so hard to get out, and it's either because there were plans and are plans to sell it to the highest bidder, the technology part, or we use it as leverage, this technology, over other nations in our other negotiations with them. I can't think of any other reason that it would be withheld this long.
There is one more, my friend, and I think this is possibly the most plausible one and possibly the most sinister. It could very well be, when I did interviews with David Grush, the main US Air Force whistleblower who came forward with allegations of his knowledge of a retrieval program of alien technology in 2023, David talked about agreements. He admitted that there were agreements in place. And when I asked him what those agreements were with, he implied that they included with non-human beings. Could it be that in return for the transfer of technology and knowledge, the United States and other governments did deals with non-human intelligences where the presence of these beings engaging with this planet was not to be revealed to the general public? That's the issue that's been explained to me, and it's quite sinister, because if that's true, it might explain the rash, particularly in the last 30, 40 years, of reported abductions, people describing how they've been literally visited in the middle of the night in their bedrooms and taken by non-human beings. It sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, but there's been quite a lot of work done, including by a very reputable Harvard professor, John Mack, who sadly died in a car accident. John was doing extensive research into so-called abductions, and he discovered the extent of people's experiences, which showed a disturbing commonality. If this was a mass delusion, they all had the same delusion. So could it be that one of the reasons why this hasn't been revealed to the public is because we allowed non-human beings to do experiments on humans? And if that's true, will government admit it? I somehow doubt it.
Oh, I doubt it. And yes, this has been a long-held belief that our government made a deal with aliens. In exchange for technology, we would allow citizens to be abducted. And this deal was broken by the aliens. They started taking more of our people. And this has been a troubled relationship ever since. That's what I've heard, Ross.
Yeah, well, and it's funny, Walter, when I first started researching my book into UFOs in plain sight, I was quite surprised at this allegation, and I was skeptical. I thought it was nonsense, and I was poo-pooing it. But I've actually spoken to people in the military who've admitted to me that abductions are real. And frankly, I can never be sure, because these people might be running an agenda, they might be just feeding me disinformation. But one of the things that consistently gets described by some witnesses is what's called MILABs, military abductions, where humans dressed in military uniform appear to be accompanying these beings during these operations. And it's interesting, John Mack, the Harvard professor of great renown, a very highly respected man who won awards for his academic leadership, he basically researched this phenomenon and decided it was real, as confronting as this is. And I do wonder sometimes whether his death was the tragedy of just an accident, as it was described. But he he came to the conclusion that there really was a commonality in the stories of these people who claimed to be abducted. And more importantly, one of the most common features were claims that there were U.S. military accompanying these beings during these abductions. And maybe part of the deal was that humans were sent along to monitor, to actually see what was going on and to try and make sure that the agreement was complied with. But like you, I heard the same claims that essentially these agreements were breached and that the beings went far beyond what they were allowed to do. Frankly, we don't know, but the ball is now in President Trump's court because he's promised us transparency. He's failed us on Epstein. He failed us on JFK. Maybe it's third time lucky. Maybe he'll tell us the full story, the full truth on UFOs.
Ross Coulthart of News Nation. The name of your show on News Nation is?
Reality Check, and you can find me on YouTube, Reality Check, Ross Coulthart. Thank you, Walter.
Live from Sydney, Australia, Ross Coulthart on the other side of midnight with Walter Sterling. How do you feel about this? I feel that the deal was absolutely true. It was made by Eisenhower. Eisenhower said to the aliens, all right, you can take this number of our citizens every year in exchange for technology. They promised it to us. They wound up taking more than they had originally promised, and we wound up getting less technology. How do you feel about this? 800-848-9222?
I surmise that I think it's a plausible explanation for why it's being kept secret from us. Imagine the breach of trust with the American public and the rest of the world to learn that their own government did a deal with non-human beings to allow them to perform totally immoral and unsanctioned experiments on human beings. How could you ever justify that as a political leader? It would be such a significant, egregious breach of trust. So I can sense it. I just don't know. I like to think the best of America. I like to think the best of this country that has shown so much moral leadership in the last 80 years since the end of World War II. I would hate to think that it lost its way so badly.
I agree, Ross. Thank you very much for being on the other side of midnight. Thank you, Ross.
The Marine Toys for Tots foster care program is bringing hope to children who need it most. Every 2 minutes, a child enters foster care, often with only a small bag of belongings. More than 400,000 children face trauma and uncertainty, many before age 8. This May, during Foster Care Awareness Month, Toys for Tots is creating Room for Joy. In 2025, nearly 375,000 children received comfort through toys, books, and essentials, reminding them they are not alone. Donate now and change a child's life.